This is Leafs Morning Take with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill.
Now we've got a fight started here right off the bat with Rosehill.
30 minutes of live, nonstop Leafs talk starts now.
It is a thirsty Thursday. What's going on, everybody? As we get set for the Maple Leafs and the New York Rangers on Broadway tonight, it's Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. How are you, Rosie?
I'm good, buddy. I heard you went out on the town last night with our guest from yesterday, Isaiah. You guys tie one on, or how was that?
Yeah, a couple. I mean, it was your casual Wednesday. You know, you take a peek around, around the curtain, but you don't go all the way in. You can't. I think you got to save it for the weekend, right?
Very professional of you. I respect that. Just tee it up for the weekend, right?
Exactly. I had to see Isaiah before he heads back off to California. He'll be back in Toronto coming up in January. Talk some hockey. We talk some craft. Just a bit of everything. It was a lot of fun. So we had a good night, and looking forward as well to the Leafs and Rangers tonight. You have a good story coming up. But first, I should alert all to remember to subscribe. Tap that like button. Leave us a review wherever you're checking us out. Don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com for the very latest on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And thoughts, comments, concerns, or questions, drop us a line in the chat down below here on YouTube, and we'll get to that later on in the show. So I mentioned Broadway, and off the air, I asked you, we'll bring the conversation on the air. Did you play at the Garden? You have any good Garden stories?
Yeah, I like playing at MSG. It's like one of my favorite barns, just with the old schoolness and plunked right in the middle of Manhattan. It's been there forever. We had like Leafs TV kind of asking us that day, I think, what it means to play in this venue, and like Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier like fought right there, like one of the biggest boxing matches in the history of the sport. And we had our father's trip there one time where all the dads came on the road with us, and we were playing at MSG, and it's just a fun weekend, man. When the dads come with you, everyone's just jacked to like, bring your dad along in the show and get on the airplanes and go to the hotels and go out for dinner, and the owners kind of wine and dine them a little bit. So it's really cool that way. And we played the Rangers, and I got in a fight with Brandon Prost straight at center ice, and it went well. And I think we scored 2 goals while I was in the box afterwards, and we ended up winning that game. And everyone was pretty jacked up for the night to come with the dad. So yeah, good memories at MSG, that's for sure.
Must be so thrilling for the old man, and any father or mother who gets to go on one of those trips to see your kid play in the show. I could only wonder. Now, were you one of those fighters? Like, I had a buddy in high school, granted it was a rep level, but he would tell everybody and their mother throughout the day, hey, come to my game. I'm dropping the mitts. Like, did you tell your pops, I'm at the Garden? Like, there's a very, very high likelihood that I'm fighting tonight. Would you tell him that?
No, I wouldn't. I never really claimed I was going to do anything or any of that. I was always just like, yeah, just let it come. Whatever happens, what happens. So no, I never said that. But I do remember I wasn't supposed to play that game. And me and my dad went out and we're doing some beer tasting down at the docks there. And we went on a little bit late, and then there was a pregame meal we were eating, and we were thinking of another guy where we were going to go and do some sightseeing and stuff around New York. And then Wilson came up and said, hey, Rosie, you're going tonight. And I was like, I think because Grabowski's wife went into labor is what happened. So I got thrown in, and I was like, hey, Dad, I better go catch a nap before this one. So I wasn't making any predictions on what was happening that night with the way I was feeling, but got a nap in, and away we went, and we got a win. So I remember that well.
By the sounds of it, you step the fuck up, and that's all that matters. Even with Grabo not on the ice, you seized the moment. You got in a scrap. The Leafs scored 2 goals while you're in the box. You love to hear it. Let's get over the boards. I love these something have to give games, or has to give games. So you have the Maple Leafs who have won 4 in a row, a 15-game point streak, 12-0-3. Mitch Marner, a 23-game point streak. And you have the New York Rangers after a very, very turbulent start. The first couple months, they're really, really starting to turn things on. They've won 4 in a row here, Rosie.
Yeah, it's it doesn't get any easier in that league. You call it what you want, a trap game. You call it something's got to give. A trap game was last game against the Ducks, and they've lost to them. And there's always some kind of it's just, if you're playing a game in the NHL, there's a good chance you're going to lose if you don't show up ready to go. Like, it just doesn't, there's no nights off really. And I mean, I know they're coming off a 7-0 win to the Ducks game, and The only reason they got that is because they were prepared and they took it seriously. And the first time they played them, it didn't seem like they did as much, and they lost to the damn team. So I like how they're finding their
Mhm.
bearings, but eventually you would think this point streak is going to end. They're going to lose a game at some point. When it's going to happen, I don't know, but I would take this team seriously. I mean, they were very strong last year. They're starting to find their groove this year. They got a really good goaltender between the pipes, and they're in their home barn. So again, the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to have to give everything they've got and continue to play the way that they are to get some points out of this game. They're no slouch.
I agree, and indisputably, I think a big storyline is going to be, and it has been during this point streak, is scoring first. If you can believe it, Toronto scored the first goal in 12 of 15 games. If you recall, in the month of October, every game they were down 1 or 2-0, right? And it's funny how that script has flipped tenfold, and now it's Toronto who always scores first. I know it's cliche to say, but I think a hot start puts them in the right time frame and a frame of thought to win the game. It's one of those smaller things, and I know a lot of teams lose leads these days, but certainly one of the things I look for in this game. And the other thing I ask you is Toronto's offense back? They have 21 goals in the past 4 games, and they've scored 4 goals or more in 4 straight games here, Rosie.
Yeah, I mean, I sure think so. I like the fact that they're spreading the scoring out a lot. It's not just like Marner and Matthews, like everyone, when you look at the numbers, you're like, wow, everyone's having fantastic numbers right now, and they're spreading it around and they're scoring lots of goals and they're capable of blowing teams out, and they have had a bit of an explosion of offense right now, and rightfully so. That is their primary, talent on that roster is their offensive power. And, it's just awesome that it's happening at a time where they're starting to round out their defensive potential and get some goaltending. And like, that's really what they've been lacking to really be called a solid team. And, it's what everyone's trying to do is put everything together. Right. And right now the Leafs have been doing it. So just continuing on with that pattern is what they're looking for, I'm sure.
It's funny. It's tough to pick apart a team again that's notched at least a point in 50 straight games. Like you start to wonder, what could I negatively pluck from this team? And I'm sorry, Rosie, like I just can't think of anything right now. Like feeling really, really positive about this team. Like even Connor Timmins is picking up points, and like Holmberg and like Engvall, I thought was fantastic the other night. So all I can pretty much say is keep things rolling. And I think it's a really good measuring stick game for an opponent that you think will be there in the thick of things in the Eastern Conference playoffs, right?
Yeah, totally. It's a team that they might have to go through come April and May, and we haven't really seen them here this year, so it's a good test for them.
Yeah.
Every game that they play when they're playing well is again a test of, can we continue this? Can we continue this? Are we going to drop it, and are we going to come out to a good start, or are we going to come out flat and feel out the other team and go down 1 or 2 goals? Like it's all those things that I'm sure Keefe is preaching right now, that to get that consistency and to make this solid play that they've had as of late, their identity, and not just something they're doing for a few weeks. It's something you got to ingrain into that group, that you can harness that at any point in time when you need to. And when you need to do that is obviously in the playoffs, and they got to come out and their offense needs to fire. They can't be scrambling around with 10 minutes left in a 1-goal game and they just can't score. You just can't run into that again. You can't get down 1 or 2 goals at the beginning of a game. You got to be ready to play at the start. And they're doing all those things right now. So I think it's just about ingraining it into their identity, and making sure it's what they do every single night. And, there's no days off in the show. You got another test here in Broadway tonight. So, interesting to see how they come out and if they can keep doing this. And every time we keep saying there's going to be a trap game, or, this is going to be a tough test, or, they're due for a stinker, they have proved us wrong. So I have no reason to believe they're not going to do it again tonight, but they better be on their game the way they have been, because if they decide, hey, this has been pretty tiring playing this way for the last few weeks, we're going to just see and feel one out, they'll lose this streak.
I'm really looking forward to the goaltending matchup in this game. Matt Murray has been confirmed 7-1-2, 2.50, 926. And we think at this point in time, you would think it's going to be Igor Shesterkin, who, again, after a slow start, really has found his game, won the Vezina Trophy last season. Does the mentality change of a player? It has to, in my opinion. Does it change for a player when you know you're going against one of the best goaltenders on the planet?
I don't know. It shouldn't. I mean, if you're playing a guy that's struggling or playing kind of a bottom tier goalie, You're going to be getting a ton of pucks on net. You want to, capitalize on your chances. You want to get them moving. You want to catch them out of position. And if you're playing, a top tier Vezina winning trophy winning goalie, then you're going to want to get lots of pucks on net. You're going to want to get them moving. You're going to want to test them early, all the same things. I'm sure they're aware that they're going to have to beat this goalie in order to win the game. So I think they'll just be kind of doubling down on their game plan, especially, the Austin Matthews and whatnot, and getting some shots on net and testing this guy because, when they got good save percentages and they're capable of turning pucks away, you're going to have to get more of them on him to make sure that you try to get goals past him and the puck past him. So, solid goalie. And yeah, he was a little bit lackluster to start the season. I kind of expected more, but it seems like he's found his form a little bit lately, and I'm sure he'll be ready to go against this team tonight.
Take us behind the scenes. Like, what would the pregame package look like for example, for a game like tonight against the New York Rangers? What would they present you with? Like, what type of information?
Well, the things that they've been doing well, like a big start is huge. Make sure we're ready to play. Make sure we are prepared. We do all of our due diligence during the daytime. We get the right food. We're hydrating. We get on the training table. Take care of any nagging injuries. Make sure you do a proper warm up. Make sure we go over our game package. What are their tendencies? What do we do to beat that? Kind of refresh on some of the X's and O's, and then just go out there with piss and vinegar. Make sure you get a good start is the biggest thing. I know coaches just hate it when you start off flat, when you get down a goal. It seems like it just whoever scores that first goal. I mean, I think it's an 80+% chance of winning after that. So it's the first goal is big. And then, it just puts you in the driver's seat for the rest of the game, and it kind of makes you in control for at least that period. Right. And so, I think the start's going to be a huge thing, and then just executing the X's and O's and taking care of your ice, taking care of your D zone, just all those little things that coaches preach that the Leafs have been doing really well. They'd just be refreshing on that, saying, hey, let's keep our mind in it and make sure that we are in control of this game by doing all these little things. That's kind of the pregame package, I imagine, in that room tonight.
Believe it or not, I actually think it's a big game for Matt Murray, more so because of how he looked against Calgary, right? If he has another one of those type of games where a couple shots that shouldn't go in are going in, then the questions start to arise. And we already know Ilya Samsonov starting on Saturday in a revenge game in his return to Washington. But do you agree with that sort of, and again, your goalie's not going to have it every night. I think it's been a great development the last little while that every game they seem to find different ways to win, and defensively they've been really, really locked in lately. But do you agree with the fact that Matt Murray, game in, game out, just because of his track record with injuries and performance the last couple of years, has to sort of prove himself every game here?
Yeah, I don't agree with it. I don't think so. I think that's the problem with goaltending in Toronto is, you can have as good of a season as Matt Murray's had, and then two goals that maybe kind of squeak through, and then all of a sudden it's this big game.
Shit.
He's got to prove himself. Fuck, we're going to be all over him if he doesn't have a great one tonight. Like, it's impossible. Like, what else can you ask Matt Murray to do? Look at his numbers against the Vezina winning goaltender beside him that he's facing tonight. They're heads and shoulders better. He's been playing wicked, and if he doesn't have his greatest stuff, he's allowed to have a game where he doesn't steal the game for them. And it's just that kind of pressure that makes it really difficult to play in this market. But I think that he shouldn't be feeling that pressure because he's got, Sammy behind him. They're going to hit the crease. They've already said that, and that's what they've been doing. They're both playing well. And, obviously he wants to have a solid game. He didn't play his best hockey against Calgary. And, I have no reason to think that he won't come out there and play the way he has been the whole season. But if he doesn't have his game and his angles are a little off and he lets in a weak one, I'm not going to be sounding the alarms. I'm not going to be saying he's, fallen off his game or any of that stuff. I don't think it's fair to do so. He's been playing too good to put him on that short of a leash already.
As you know, I mean, you've played in this market. It's just a much different animal. And I think the one thing people like to rip on is the goaltending. But I think you're bang on. I just wanted to pose the question and wonder, sort of get in your head, how you felt about Matt Murray and how you felt about the fact that, is this sustainable or not? But certainly I think a lot of what this team has been doing lately, it's just not sustainable, right? Over a long period of time, things are going to even out, but they're playing unbelievable right now. We get set for this matchup at the Garden between the Rangers and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Last up is a look at the Atlantic Division standings. I don't believe we did it last week, but it's quite definitive in my world. There seems to be three teams that are putting themselves apart from the others. That's Boston. You look atop the standings, they never lose. The Leafs never lose. And Tampa seems to really have found their game since Anthony Cirelli came back 6 games ago. Of course, that game where Toronto lost in overtime on that Alex Killorn winner. How do you feel about Detroit? How do you feel about Florida? Those are probably the two biggest threats in the division. I think Ottawa's cooked. I think Montreal's done. I think Buffalo's done here.
Yeah, once you start looking at Christmas, you start to see some separation between the top and the bottom, and the cream kind of rises to the top. And I think when you look, that Boston team is just, I mean, with the Leafs playing the way they are, you'd think they'd be first in their division and be able to get that wild card spot to play against in the first round. But they're looking like they're continually stuck in that second place, just because, like you said, Boston won't lose. And the thing that always bugs me is those 2 games in hand. They've just been sitting there lingering for months, it seems like, and we want to see where we stack up. I mean, we're 3 points back, but they got 2 games in hand. If they win those, blah, 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 you just don't know what's going to happen. So I really prefer looking at the standings when the games played are evened up, and I don't know when that's going to happen. Boston's schedule must get a little bit hectic here coming up before Christmas, you would hope. But it's, again, the only thing that bugs me about this Toronto team, and I know they did it last year and had a great season, but they're very good chance they're going to face Tampa Bay again in the first round. And, Tampa Bay is a really solid team. And I understand your thought process where the regular season doesn't mean anything, because it just comes down to that week of playing that first round. And if it's against Tampa Bay and they find their mojo and they get coached up and they're firing all cylinders and they got all their experience from winning cups there, all of a sudden it's like, my God, but all you can do is put yourself in a better position to win that series. And that's all the Leafs have been doing all season long. So I try not to standings watch too much, but I mean, I guess you could say it's a bit frustrating that they have been racking off these wins like that, and they're still, a distant second to Boston. But at the end of the day, it's early, and you're going to run into really good teams like Boston, and there's a lot of guys, vying for that top spot in the league, and all you can do is put yourself in the best position. That's what the Leafs have been doing. It's just I don't know if they're going to catch them or not. Something's gonna give for both teams here, and whether it happens at the same time or not, they could flip-flop a little bit, but Boston sure just won't lose.
The way I see it for Toronto, just get in. Like, I could care less who they play, whether it's Tampa, Florida, Boston. Like, I think they've shown over the last couple of years they could lose to anybody. Columbus, Montreal. I understand the pandemic was a thing, and I'm not trying to make a joke of it. Like, I really don't think it matters who you play in the Stanley Cup playoffs. At some point in time, you're going to have to go through them, whether it's Tampa, whether it's Boston. So I rather they prepare themselves. I think if they're not going to win first, at the very least, you have to lock down home ice. I think more times than not, hasn't worked out in their favor, of course, but you want game 7 on home ice, correct?
Yeah, definitely. You want to lock that down. That's huge. You want to start your first 2 games at home and give yourself, that advantage as far as getting up in the series and being in the driver's seat. It's just weird. I just feel like if the Toronto Maple Leafs can get through the first round, they will go to the Stanley Cup Finals. And I believe they would have last year.
Is that a bold prediction, considering they haven't done it in like 18 years or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, 100% it is. But I'm not predicting the past of players that don't even exist on the roster anymore. I'm predicting this team. And last year, if they got through Game 7, if they beat that team, I think they would have walked through Florida and walked through the New York Rangers, and I think they would have been right there. I think they would have lost in the Stanley Cup Finals, but it's kind of one of those things where I think their hardest series is by far going to be the first round, and it's just the way that this division stacks up and who you're going to face. But that hurdle is obviously the first round. I think it's going to be in anybody's head when you haven't done it in how many years, and it's that big thing where everyone knows they're this fantastic team who hasn't got through the first round. So it's going to be that big pressure-packed series. And I think you're right. It doesn't matter who they play. Say they play Boston. They've proven they can beat Boston. They get through that. Holy shit, they're going to be looking at each other going, there's nothing stopping us from going all the way, because that's probably the hardest thing we're going to face all playoffs.
To be the best, you have to beat the best. I believe Ric Flair said that back in the day, and I truly do feel about this Leafs team. Like, I really, really do not care who they play in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think it'd be fun to play Tampa again, but again, the track record speaks for itself. Like, it hasn't just been one concrete team. People love to bring up the Boston Bruins, but having worked and covered this Leafs team as a radio host for a couple of years, I saw them lose to Columbus. I saw them lose to the Montreal Canadiens. So it's not just like a one-team thing. it's like an evolving thing where it doesn't matter who they play, they seem to come up short. But again, we do wait every springtime for them to answer the bell. And one year it's going to happen. I mean, history just tells us numbers are going to change, and that's data. It's going to change at some point in time. And you hope it's this season, right? And that's why, to a degree, I understand why they keep coming back every year with the same conversation that we're going to take another crack at it, right?
So tell me this, if you've seen those series against Columbus and against Montreal where they've kind of laid an egg and been the better team
Yeah.
on paper and lost her, with the way those teams were set up and the holes that they may or may not have had, do you feel that this team is different than those teams that laid those eggs?
Dude, I wish I had that answer for you, but I've just seen this rodeo time and time before where they're barn burners in the regular season, and it gets to the playoffs and they can't score goals anymore. Like I will say, and as you know, like playing in the league, it's a different game. Having said that, I think that the one tangible difference I've seen with this team out of maybe comparing it to others is defensively. I think they're really, really locked in. And that's from like Nylander down to like Mac Hollowell. It seems like every player knows their role. I think you look at teams who win the cup, you know, in recent memory, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, obviously the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Colorado Avalanche. It seems like those teams always have sort of the DNA where it's sort of defense first, but they know they can score. And so it's got to
Yeah.
be a mind frame. It's got to be sort of instilling confidence in yourself. Like if we had the magic elixir, we wouldn't be here, right? And I do again agree with the fact that you have to take that kick of the can, the next one and the next one and the next one, and eventually you'll break through. Like Tampa's the perfect example of that, right?
Yeah, there's those teams that have had, you know, contending worthy teams that
Yeah,
fall off the planet and they get their stars in line and everyone's contracts are in place and this is our year, we're making a go at it. And you know, the Dallas
yeah,
Stars have done it, the Colorado Avalanche have done it in the past, the Tampa Bay Lightning have done it in the past. It takes time to get good, and when guys like us sit here and scrutinize this Maple Leafs team, you know,
yeah,
just with a fine tooth comb, it's easy to start getting negative because you just want them to go and dominate every single day and win the Stanley Cup and have nothing to worry about. And when they don't do that, it's easy to just start picking them apart where other teams kind of fly under the radar. And yeah, they didn't have it this year, but they're getting some ducks in a row for next year. And that's all you really say about them because no one's following them. They're not a big market team. And, you know, this team has the most scrutiny out of anybody. I think that is a reason why it's been so hard to win. And they've put themselves in this position where it's easy to, you know, there's nothing that they can do this year. I think that's been proven on Twitter where they're going on this run and people still tear them apart and saying they're the shit team and they're a joke and they're a flash in the pan
yeah.
and they're going to blow it again. It's like, why would you say that when they're doing what they're doing? All like you've asked them to be good, they're good right now.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they're never going to be out of that until they do it, until they win, until they get to the second round, until they make a run, until they win a cup. I mean, take your pick. I mean, they could win the cup this year, and there's still going to be players saying, "Oh, well, you'll be shit for 50 years and then win one. You think you're good." There's going to be people saying that. So you just can't really listen to that. All you can do is put the best foot forward and try to win these games. And man, they've been doing it really good. As far as us covering them, there's not
Yeah.
much more that we could ask out of them in the last month and a half. They're doing everything that we could have asked.
And of course, the two prime examples, the Washington Capitals, the year nobody expected them to win, they win. And Steven Stamkos, for like
Right.
the first 10 years, 12 years of his career, he was a noted loser. All of a sudden wins the cup and wins again. And I think he's going to go down as one of the more winninger players. And if that makes sense, one of the winningest
Yeah.
players in his generation, right?
Yeah, funny how that happens. And
Yeah.
St. Louis
Yeah.
Blues,
Ovechkin.
like anything can happen. Look at the Blues, man. They were dead last at this point in time. Imagine your team's dead last
Yeah.
right now, and you're like, no, we're gonna figure it out and win the cup. You'd be like, are you fucking kidding
Yeah.
me? Like, what planet are you living on? That doesn't happen. Anything does happen. I mean, the Leafs have as good of a chance this year as absolutely anybody to go
Yeah.
deep, and just following them the way that we have followed them. And I thought the holes in their games where you just don't have the goaltending you just can't rely on it. You just don't know what you're going to get. Like Campbell and Freddie even were just you're just not reliable enough. We don't know if we're going to get that unbelievable stand on your head. We got our goalie, or what the fuck was that? You didn't really give us a chance to win tonight. You don't know if you're going to get that. Then you only have 7 games to prove it and to get it done. Then your scoring fucking dries up because you're gripping your stick too much and you're like, oh my God, we're this offensive team. We can't score in the playoffs. And you just keep shitting the bed a couple times. This year just seems like they're in control of that stuff for the first time in a while. So, I mean, again, time will tell. They're going to have to keep proving it every night.
It's all about putting it together at the right time. The wrap-up is brought to you by our friends at PointsBet Canada. So I gave you the keys to the car last night. It was a tough, like, Calgary fucking sucks, man. I'm sorry. They suck.
Yeah, what is going on with them? I was watching at my brother's house and they're down 2 Cobb, and I'm
Yeah.
like, nice bet, Rosie, you fucking idiot. And then they score 3 straight, and I'm like, empty netter here? Like, oh, we've got this bet done. And I went home and didn't even watch, and then checked it this morning and said, yeah, exactly. But something's wrong in Calgary, that's for sure. I mean, everyone around here that follows the Flames have been like, man, this team got even better over the offseason. And, it's pretty impressive what they did to their roster considering they lose their 2 studs. But, man, they sure haven't put it together tonight. So I think that'll be the last time I bet on them for a little while.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, fresh slate today. We're going to look obviously at this Leafs and Rangers game, and I'm looking at a shot prop specifically. Austin Matthews over 3.5 shots on goal last I looked, around -165. So yes, the price is juiced, but we're looking to get paid. We're looking to make some money. So I'm going to bring you along your way. 20 shots on goal in the past 3. He's cleared 3.5 in 4 of 5, 6 of 8. And then on top of that, the bright lights of Broadway. I think he's going to be horned up tonight, Rosie.
I think so. And also, it was a bit of a track meet last game where everyone and their dog is counting up their points and everyone lit up the score sheet. And Austin was kind of there, the guy who you'd think would lead the charge is sitting there with a measly apple. And I think he's going to be like, okay, you guys think, you want to see what happens to a score sheet. I imagine he's going to be bringing everything. And if he catches a little lightning in the bottle, I think 3 shots on net's going to be a joke, and he could have 3 goals for all we know. So I like the way, I think he's going to have a fire under his ass. I like the bet.
And there's just something about playing like an upper echelon goalie too for a prolific sniper like Austin Matthews. He has to give a bit more with his shots and with, his pace of play and his game. So, he's going to be looking to cook tonight against Igor Shesterkin. Rosie, that's going to do it for today's show. Looking forward to tomorrow for a full review of this one. Again, 2 red hot teams colliding on Broadway.
Yeah, should be good. Again, tough to say, man. Shesterkin could come out and just shut the door and fizzle this whole streak. And, like you said, Matthews could go out there and, find his way and kind of do a me against the goalie type thing and light the tits off this kid. So who knows what's going to happen, but should be a good game. I haven't really had a game where I think it's a real test on the road against a good team, good goalie. Yeah. Like it's a good test tonight.
Looking forward to it. Again, Mitch Marner, a 23-game point streak. The Leafs, a 15-game point streak on the line against a red-hot team in the New York Rangers, who have won 4 in a row. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. Thanks so much for listening and watching. We'll talk on Friday. Take care.